Hi, I'm Mark Devine, former Navy SEAL, founder of SEALFIT and Unbeatable Mind. Thank you for taking the time to join me today in this presentation on our 5-part winning formula for peak performance and power training. So let me get right into this. Today, we're going to learn a proven formula that I've created that when applied will allow you to forge emotional resiliency, enrich your mental toughness, unlock what I call 20x or 20 times performance potential, both as a leader and a team member. The 5 principles include finding your why, living warrior disciplines, developing leadership grit, becoming sheepdog strong, and taking massive action. And I'm going to dig into each one of those as we move forward in this presentation. But first, so you get the most out of this, please give me your full attention. Create a space to focus. I'm going to be covering information that'll be very valuable, have immediate benefit to you. So let's give it your full attention. No distractions, please. I'd like to ask you a few questions. First, have you reached a plateau in your life? Do you feel the need to reboot your productivity, gain new inspiration, and to see transformation in key areas of your life? And are there areas of your life that, if you were able to focus on them effectively, would bring greater success and satisfaction? And finally, do you want to break through barriers that may be holding you back from reaching your 20 times or 20x potential? I bet the answer to those questions is yes, yes, and yes. And if that answer is yes, then this 5-part winning formula for peak performance and power is a proven method that will help you achieve those goals. Imagine what your life would look like if you could 20x any area, such as your financial wealth, your family health and relationships, your actual physical health and fitness, your spirituality, your professional life, philanthropy. What else could you 20x? And what would that look like? The 5-part winning formula for peak performance and power that I'm about to share with you is what I've used to create the SEALFIT and Unbeatable Mind companies that have positively impacted tens of thousands of executives, elite athletes, and spec ops candidates from around the world, along with numerous corporations and government agencies. It's allowed me to write 4 books, New York Times bestsellers, Wall Street Journal bestseller, Amazon bestseller, and more on the way. And I've become a sought-after speaker and coach for achieving and sustaining high levels of performance. But most importantly, I've been able to balance all this with my personal life, which is my #1 priority, especially my wife and my son. And this is all possible because I've mastered the techniques that I'm going to share with you today. So, are you ready to learn the 5-part winning formula and to transform your life? I bet you are, but before we dig in, I've got a special offer at the end of this training, which is only available for those of you who stay on the webinar. So that's your incentive to stay with me through this whole presentation. I think you're going to want to listen to this because things are changing fast. Let me ask you this. What do Yahoo, MySpace, and Kodak have in common? Well, it's pretty obvious, isn't it? They don't exist anymore. They exist in a much smaller fashion than they did when they started, when they had the same potential as their competitors, Google, Facebook, and who's the competitor Kodak? Apple. The Apple iPhone has completely replaced Kodak and run them out of business. So my point is, these are just well-known examples of companies that have been supplanted by upstarts or organizations that have been more aggressive, more dynamic, more adaptive than them. And I personally believe that over 50% of today's Fortune 500 companies will be out of business in 5 years, and countless other smaller businesses as well. But on the other side, millions of new entrepreneurs will enter the market around the world, offering products and services that we can't even imagine today. The question is, how will you stack up in the face of this rapidly changing, hugely disruptive world that we are accelerating into? Bottom line up front is that in this time of accelerating technology and competition in the global arena, individuals and teams must overhaul their attitudes about change and beliefs about what is possible. They must 20x their productivity, creativity, and effectiveness. Most folks who come train with myself and my team are very successful and accomplished already, yet they feel like they need to do more, that the forces of change are a tsunami threatening to swamp them. But in the face of this massive disruption, you can unlock your 20X factor and consistently overcome the challenges that face you and win. 20 times more of anything is hard to fathom. And yet, as we have demonstrated consistently here at SEALFIT and Unbeatable Mind, it's not only possible but probable. Once you reframe your thinking and channel this 5-part winning formula for peak performance and power, the same mindset that I learned in the SEALs and teach to successful trainees. So I want to get into the 5-part winning formula for peak performance and power, but I realize not everybody who's watching this knows who I am. So before I get into the principles, let me tell you a bit of my story. I am from upstate New York, and prior to the career I had in the SEAL teams, I was actually a fledgling accountant at Coopers & Lybrand in New York City, where I got my CPA and achieved my MBA at the Stern School of Business. And that early career was driven in the short term by my goals of earning those degrees and that certificate, and by my long-term goals of financial independence. But I sensed that something wasn't right. Of course, my family and friends would say that my future looked bright. I was making great money in a prestigious job. I had a great career path laid out in front of me. It looked like a winner to others, but it didn't feel like one to me. That's when Mr. Nakamura and Zen training came into my life. It was this training that began to transform me from the inside out. The first deliberative mental development program that I underwent, and it had a profound impact on me, and it shifted my thinking and my orientation, and it changed the trajectory of my life. So at 26, I graduated as the honor man, #1 graduate of my Navy SEAL BUDS training class, number 170. And then I served for 9 years on active duty and 11 years as a reserve officer around the globe. And I retired as a commander rank in 2011. After the SEALs came several entrepreneurial business ventures, each with major setbacks on their windy roads to success. And in 2006, I was hired by the U.S. Navy to develop and implement a nationwide mentor program for Navy SEAL trainees before they actually went to boot camp. The program exceeded its objectives by a long shot. The candidates went from a 33% pass rate to over 80% on the physical screening tests that they had to take when they arrived at boot camp. This helped reduce the attrition rate at basic underwater demolition SEAL training by up to 5%, increasing the number and the quality of the Navy SEALs we have serving today. But there were unseen forces at work then, as there are now. And I learned that a startup competing against billion-dollar government contracting firms is pretty much a losing proposition. The contract was ripped out from under me in a highly dubious manner. And what was supposed to be a multi-year, multi-million-dollar operation was now operated by another company called Blackwater. And I was back to ground zero. But this setback, like all challenges, had a big silver lining. So I realized that during this challenge, civilians had a need for training like I was providing to these Spec Ops candidates. Because after much trial and error with the Spec Ops candidates, I had created a training program that led to over a 90% success rate in them getting through BUDS or through their pipeline training. And I turned this training towards civilians, and it became SEALFIT. And that's the same training that I'm now speaking of in this presentation. The first principle is to find your why. Now that sounds simple, but there's a lot there. So the question is, what is your why? It is a simple question, but it's not so simple to answer. This principle is all about developing the capacity for self-awareness, something that's not taught in traditional education, something that can't be handed to you by another person as a gift. Self-awareness allows you to design your life so that you can achieve your highest potential. But if you don't know why you're doing things, then the how or the where doesn't really matter. When we begin Kokoro Camp, 50 hours of nonstop training, that's the first question we ask the trainees is, why are you here? What is your underlying driving purpose? And can you connect that to a higher sense of why you're on this planet. And these are momentous questions. These are like meaning of life type questions. And this first principle, finding your why, is incredibly important for you, and it is key to beginning the process of unlocking your 20x potential. Because if you can't answer the question why when times get tough, then you will quit, especially with that tsunami of change that's coming upon us. So learning to connect with your why is our first principle, and it's critical. The untrained mind will never lock onto the why. It will wander and it will chase after the next shiny thing. And then it will devolve into negativity and ego identity. And that unfettered mind of the unbeatable warrior is beyond the grasp of the untrained mind. The first step of finding your why and self-awareness is to actually tame your mind so that you have the capacity to reflect deeply and to find the answers to those momentous questions. And so what we've got to do is to tame our brain zoo. What do I mean by brain zoo? Well, we have what we call a tripart brain. We have that most ancient part of our brain is the reptilian brain. Think of that as your croc brain. That is what manages our unconscious systems, such as our limbic system and our unconscious patterns of breathing and digestion and all that. So you don't really have to, you don't think and connect consciously with that reptilian or croc brain. It's also that part of you that seizes you in fear in the fight or flight response. Right? So it can be influenced through brain training. The second is that mammalian brain. And the mammalian brain handles things like memory and our visual capacities. And then the last part, the most recent and modern part of our brain wraps around that, and it's what we most normally think of when we look at all the folds in a brain, and that's called the neocortex, or the human brain. And we also call that the monkey mind because it's always bouncing around, it's always outward focused. It's always outward focused, and that's where our conscious cognition is experienced. And so most people, most human beings, live in that outer neocortex cognitive functioning brain, and they're not able to access or change or control what's going on in the mammalian brain or the limbic reptilian croc brain. So what I mean by training your brain zoo is learning how to control the neocortex so that you can access the mammalian brain and use your visual skills and your memory skills better, and then also to be able to manage your croc brain to reduce the effect of stress and other homeostatic patterns in your life. And this is all part of the training that we offer in Unbeatable Mind. This allows you to focus on the right things for the right durations, and it forges more resiliency in your mental life and a positive, elastic, self-evolving, self-managing, self-growing mind. And this helps us to know our why. Now, I've said a lot there, but I don't have time to go into much more detail, but I would like to offer you your first training session. Breath Control 101. And I'm going to submit here that if you can control your breathing, learn to control your breathing consciously, then you'll be able to control your life and your life force. So here we go. We're going to inhale, hold our breath, exhale, hold our breath, and we're going to do this to a 5 count, and then we're going to recite a positive statement such as, easy day, I've got this, or I'm getting better and better, or I'm feeling good, I'm looking good. And on your own, you're going to repeat this a minimum of 20 times. Let's just do 2 rounds. So exhale, inhale, hold your breath, easy day. We've got this. Hoo-yah. Exhale. Hold your breath. Clear that monkey mind. Focus. Inhale. Hold. I'm feeling good, looking good. I ought to be in Hollywood. Exhale. And hold. Great. Now what I've just done in this training tool that's a gift for you is called box breathing. It's a practice I developed back in 2007 to train the Navy SEAL candidates to learn how to focus and concentrate, and while they're focusing and concentrating, to grease the groove of positive self-talk, a positive internal dialogue. So there's 2 practices or 2 training tools being blended into one there. And this box breathing will have a profound effect on your ability to manage your stress because it'll trigger this parasympathetic nervous system, which is the rest and digest response to counteract the fight or flight stress response of the sympathetic nervous system. So it'll have that effect as well as the effect of clearing your mind, calming yourself, calming your mind, and developing a more positive mindset. This is very powerful, and as you practice this skill, it'll lead you closer and closer to finding your why. Great. Let's move on to the second principle. Second principle is to live warrior disciplines. What do I mean by warrior disciplines? Well, first let's talk about this quote from Warren Buffett. The difference between successful people and really successful people is that really successful people say no to almost everything. Interesting. That brings us to our first warrior discipline, simplicity. We used to say in the SEAL teams, keep it simple. Stupid. Simplicity. So we've gotten really overcomplicated in our lives. And the pace of things and the fact that we're just moments away from our email and from texting and from any consumption of any media, and we have massive amount of information flowing at us and distractions all over the place. So it's very difficult to simplify and to focus these days. So we must declutter our environment with 80-20 awareness. So what I recommend is that we start with our external environment. And so the decluttering process is to look at the things in your life, the physical things in your life, and you can start with different areas of your life, like your closet or your garage or the trunk of your car or your desk. And in fact, I recommend you hit all of those up in whatever order makes sense to you, and look at that and say, what 20% of the items here are delivering 80% of the value to me, which means everything else is really just clutter. So you need to make a hard decision about getting rid of that. And how often do we hang on to things that we just have no use for, and it's because we're attached to them. And so this idea of simplicity helps us develop another warrior discipline that we'll discuss in another time, of non-attachment, not being attached to all this stuff that's cluttering us up. So declutter with 80-20 awareness. Next is to develop a singular focus around the one thing, the one main thing that you're supposed to be driving toward. Of course, this is influenced by that first principle of knowing your why. If you don't know your why, you'll never radar lock on your one thing. You can almost look at the why as your vision for your future, and the one thing as your current mission on how you're going to drive toward fulfilling that vision. So what is your one thing? Define and write a mission statement around that one thing, and develop a plan on how every single day when you get up and you put your clothes on and you begin your morning practice, which we'll talk about later, to win in the mind, that you're clear about that one thing focus and you can go for it. Next is 4-quadrant time management. This is first introduced, I believe anyways, or at least I'm aware of, from General Eisenhower, who of course became President Eisenhower. And he used this in World War II to help stay focused on the right things at the right time. And 4-quadrant time management means to really prioritize what's important and what's urgent, and to take care, to make sure you give ample focus to the important but non-urgent. I hope that makes sense. So obviously we're going to take care of the urgent and important things because we have to. Those are like deadlines and getting the project done. But a lot of times the things that are not urgent but more important or equally important, such as planning and visualizing your future and cultivating better relationships and doing the personal development, doing your training, that stuff goes by the wayside because it just gets crowded out. So this is an important skill that we work on here in the Unbeatable Mind training. And last but not least here with simplicity is front sight focus planning. Getting really clear about which targets you're supposed to go after that are related to that one thing focus. Let's move on. Second warrior discipline I'd like you to consider is dedication. Dedication. So similar to commitment, right? When you deeply commit, then you're dedicated to seeing the mission through to its final win, to the final conclusion. In addition, you're dedicated to your training. No, this is relentless, realistic, daily training, both at an individual and a team level, that is going to support and help you develop momentum toward the win. You're also dedicated to your ethos. And see how these are linked. If you don't know your why and the deep patterns that are driving your behavior in your life, then there's no way that you will ever be able to develop a personal ethos so you know where you stand on issues, and you know where you stand when you get pushed, or your team gets pushed, or your company gets pushed, whether that's pushed by the economy or by the competition. So we've got to be dedicated to discovering our ethos, to finding and clarifying our purpose, to training every day to evolve ourselves toward our maximum potential, and dedicated to accomplishing our mission. The final warrior discipline that I'd like to talk about here today is authenticity. And I'm going to use these terms that you see: waking up, growing up, cleaning up, and showing up, to talk about how do we become more authentic as leaders and as teammates. Waking up is the idea, the notion of understanding or appreciating that the ego part of you, the identity part of you, is not your deepest self. Let's call the deeper self your essential nature. And it's also been called your true self, your spiritual center. Okay? So if you think of like spiritually centered leadership or servant leadership or heart-centered leadership, we're all kind of leading toward the same idea that there's a deep essence, an unchanging essence within us that is separate from the egoic identities of our lives. And when we can connect with that part of us, it's said to be waking up to it. And then we can begin to lead from that deep, peaceful, kind of grounded center. And we're able to say no with confidence. We're able to make, hard, right decisions because we're operating out of that instead of our ego, which is always going to be making limited choices with second and third order consequences. Growing up is essentially growing our lines of development. So developing cognitively, developing socially, emotionally, developing our decision-making skills, those things. And so we want to grow up, not just along our age continuum, but grow our skills. These are more horizontal skills. So that's an important part of developing authenticity. If you're going to be in a leadership role and you're not trying to grow and you haven't woken up, then you're going to be challenged as a leader. Now, this third part is critical, and we spend a lot of time on this in the Unbeatable Mind training, and that is cleaning up. And that's working on what I call your background of obviousness, or what the psychology profession would call your shadow self. And everyone has it, including myself, and that is critical. It's impossible to live a full life and to unlock 20x potential unless you can clean up some of the challenges from your past that we drag around like psychological kettlebells or emotional kettlebells. And that is a deep part of the work. And there's not much more we can say about it here because it's very personal and it requires a great self-awareness and for you to understand your why in order to get there. And the last is showing up. What I mean by that is if you've woken up and you're committed to growing up and you're committed to cleaning up, then you can show up more powerfully as a leader and with your team. And all of this is what we'll call authenticity, meaning that you are showing up, you are presenting to the world your most complete self, right? The real you. And that's the essence of what we're talking about. You want 20x potential. If you want 20x results, then bring more of yourself to the table. Awesome. Let's move on to the third principle. So we've addressed finding your why, living those three warrior disciplines. Now let's talk about developing leadership grit. Leadership, I love that word grit, right? It reminds me of John Wayne from the movie True Grit, right? This like resiliency and mental toughness and stick-to-itiveness combined. The first principle here around developing leadership grit is Kokoro. Kokoro, our SEAL Fit program has a training called Kokoro Camp. That's the 50-hour nonstop Hell Week simulation. Kokoro means merging heart and mind. And then in our Unbeatable Mind training, we have Kokoro Yoga. Same thing, merging heart and mind through more of a yogic practice as opposed to the hardcore Navy SEAL training. So with Kokoro, developing leadership grit means to access your heart's energy, not be closed off of it, not make decisions solely from that monkey mind, that outer cognitive self, right? So if we're accessing our whole mind, then the whole mind is able to connect with the heart, which has also been called the heart mind, and also the belly. So that's the second one. Building what the Japanese called haragai, which is belly awareness, gut intuition, gut feeling, right? And so this whole notion here of Kokoro is accessing heart energy, building your gut energy, your power, your intuition, which then helps us cultivate leadership insight because we're using our whole body as an information gathering tool. And then we get flashes of insight that come from that. And then we support this Kokoro sense by employing decision models that allow us some tools, or that give us some tools to check our work, so to speak. So we're not solely relying on our instincts of our belly or the intuition of our heart or the insights in our mind, but we're using decision models to help us employ that information in an architecture that leads to better results, to help us 20x our potential. Now let's talk about that word grit. Grit is like, how do we stay the course, never quit? How do we be the captain of our soul, like Ernest Henley says? Well, first, we must actively cultivate our own esteem. Now, those of us who already have esteem, this means cultivating deep confidence. But for some people, we have to start with just learning to like ourselves and to love ourselves. And you can't like and love other people if you don't start with yourself there. It really is a carbon copy, right, type situation. So cultivating esteem. Gritty people have a high sense of self-confidence. That sounds self-evident, doesn't it? But that self-confidence is cultivated, right, through either training or life experiences. So we like to do both. We like to create life experiences to become gritty, and we like to train so that we're grittier when we approach those life circumstances. Part of this is to begin to deliberately forge mental and emotional control. And some of the training we have in Unbuild Mind, such as the 4-step witness process and the Big 4 skills, which I'll talk about a little bit later, are tools for forging a mental and emotional control. Next, the warrior awakens to its own humility, to his or her own humility. And I alluded to this with when I talked about waking up. When we wake up and we realize the deep essence inside of us, which is timeless, which is eternal, which is immovable as a mountain, then we become very humble. Our ego really just sits in awe of it, and we don't need to be running around pounding our chests and talking about how great we are. We turn more to a life of service and helping others, which leads to this last point, to maintain an other focus, right? Stop being so self-absorbed, possessed with our needs and everything. We need to take care of those, obviously, so we can take care of others, but begin to turn your eyes onto your teammates and take them off yourself. And that'll all help develop grit. And last but not least, when it comes to developing leadership grit, embracing the suck. What do I mean by that? But learning to find thrill in the challenging circumstances of life. The Finnish word saisu means this. Saisu means finding thrill, embracing the challenges for the benefit that they bring to your spirit. Very cool. So find thrill in challenge, and you do this in micro steps. So start out with small challenges and then take on bigger challenges until you're starting to think seriously about Kokoro Camp or something like that that's really going to challenge you, because the human being thrives on challenge. Respecting hard. Now, what I mean by that is these are related. Respecting daily hard work and the benefits that come from hard work. Respecting others who have embraced hard work. Right? We develop a whole community at SEALFIT and Unbuild Mind for people who have learned to respect hard, and every day they're stepping up and doing the work. They're doing the hard things, they're seeking out challenges, and they're doing it together as a team. Next is displaying quiet determination. Quiet determination. Right? We don't need to be running around telling people how freaking amazing this hard thing we did was. We just get it done and move on to the next hard thing. Okay? It's okay to celebrate your victory, but You don't need to be blasting everything you do onto Facebook and to, telling the world about how hard you are either, right? Just do the work and move on to the next challenge and, right? Just stay present. So that's what embracing the suck is all about. And persevering, all of this develops the capacity to stay the course, to persevere when others quit. And frankly, this is a big part of 20xing your performance. You can have 20 times performance if you just stay the course and you're focused on the right things that are deeply connected to your why, and you've developed those warrior disciplines. Hoo-yah. Let's move on. The fourth principle, I love this, is called becoming sheepdog strong. Let me tell you a little bit about sheepdogs. So it's a metaphor. Imagine that most of the world are like a flock of sheep. And around the outside of the flock are the wolves. The wolves are the predators. So there's a very small percentage of our world are violent and they have no conscience. They have no moral structure. And the sheep just want to put their head down and graze. And that's fine. But who's taking care of the sheep? Who's protecting them? The shepherd can't take care of them all, not at a physical level. And so the sheepdog is there to protect the sheep. Now, what does that mean for you? Well, there's training that you can do to become a sheepdog. Okay? A part of this is essentially to develop the confidence and to commit to being part of the solution in your community when the wolves do their thing, right? When the wolves attack. And most of you listening, or many of you listening, have families, right? You have wives, husbands, or children, and parents. And we want these, we want our family to have a safe and healthy life. The sheepdog is always on alert. Sheepdog has a radar constantly scanning, looking for threats, and learning to avoid threat situations. And also taking action when they notice a situation unfolding, right? To prevent the death and destruction of innocence. Okay, so this is advanced training here. When we get into an unbuilt mind, it's very important that all of us who have the capacity step up to be sheepdogs in our families and communities, to be the protectors. It's a warrior attitude that we must develop. And what this means is we become very decisive. We don't hunker down in fear because we've got that physical, mental, and emotional control. And if we see a situation unfolding, we're decisive about it. We take action. And 99% of the time we can diffuse those threats or those situations because the wolves are not expecting it. They think the sheep are going to act like sheep. And when all of a sudden you act like a sheepdog, then it totally trips them up, and they don't want that, right? They're afraid of getting hurt. The wolves in this context are actually cowards. And all we've got to do is confront them and take away their game, all right? And so part of the training here also is to use that visual part of that mammalian brain to dirt dive scenarios, to get confident in your mind. What would happen as you take your family to the airport if there was an incident at the airport? What would you do? How would you handle it with your family? How would you calm them? Where would you take them? So get skilled in dirt diving different scenarios as you travel, different scenarios around your home, different scenarios around your workplace. If you had an active shooter come into your workplace, what would you do? We had a Kokoro trainee recently who is a superintendent of a high school who diffused a school shooting by being a sheepdog and essentially confronting this student who had brought a weapon to school and was dressed in camis, clearly intending to use it, and he dragged him out of the classroom and disarmed him. Now, had he not had the courage and the sheepdog mindset to do this, then it would have been a disastrous situation. Let me talk about whole mind training, because this is where we're leading here, right? We've talked about finding our why and developing warrior disciplines and leadership grit, and now sheepdog training. All of this requires that we activate our whole mind, that we get those three brains working together in harmony, and we're tapped into the full capacity of our brain, both right and left hemisphere and neocortex, mammalian, and reptilian brain are all accessible, and we're able to use those parts of our brain. And then what this allows us to do is all 5 modes of thinking, which include cognition, memory access, dreaming, imagery, and then the fifth, which is my favorite, we call direct perceiving. This is when just information, is known to us. Well, it's experienced as insight. Then we develop the capacity for all 5 of those modes when our 3 brains are working together. That is what happens when you train your zookeeper and you become in charge of all of your mental processing and you become non-reactive but responsive to the world. You are beginning to write your own script. And this also allows us to access flow on demand, because in that perceiving mind, that's where we find the flow state. The perceiving mind is in more of an alpha state, and the cognizing mind and the memory mind and the visual mind are going to be more in that beta or gamma state. And so when we're in that flow state, we can learn to click there pretty quickly through our Unbeatable training. Ultimately, what I'm getting at here is we must develop our whole mind so that we can win in our mind before we step foot on the battlefield. All right, moving on. Let's cut to the 5th principle. Take massive action. All of this stuff I've said up to now is meaningless if we sit at home and watch TV, or don't take massive action. If we just listen to this webinar and then go back, oh, that was really motivating, Coach Devine was really motivating, and then you do nothing about it. Taking massive action is important. You must learn to be offensive-minded. I talked about this in my book, The Way of the Seal. An offensive mindset is dynamic and aggressive and fast-moving and adaptable. Very flexible and adaptable. You want to be like a reed that blows in the wind, not like the steady oak that's going to get blown over when the hurricane rips through. This means we commit ourselves to continuous evolution, continuous learning, but not just one type of learning. Okay? I think I've made that very clear. Not just learning a new skill, but learning a broad range of, cognitive and emotional and spiritual and effective type skills. Okay? So constant learning. We call that the 5-mountain training plan in Unbeatable Mind. And then to know that courage is found in the details. So learning to do the small things in your life extraordinarily well. And when you can do the small things extraordinarily well and they're linked to your one thing, which is connected to your why and bounded by your ethos, it brings us great courage, right? And we're able to take care of the big things fairly easily. And this last idea of to move faster, slow down. Slow down. Learn to take time to breathe. Learn to take time to meditate, to find what we call sacred silence. And we'll do this through a morning routine, an evening routine, and spot drills throughout the day. So to move faster in life, to access that 20x potential, slow down. In the SEAL teams we used to say, slow is smooth, smooth is fast. It's a great concept. And now we want to build an unbeatable team. So as you develop yourself along these 5 principles, you're going to be able to attract excellence in the form of other teammates who want what you are becoming. They want to be part of this. They want to be part of your vision. They want to be part of your energy. They want to be part of the impact that you are having in the world. So stop thinking about recruiting in a traditional sense and learn to attract. And you attract through your example. And then we align our tribe toward the common vision, and then we have a relentless and realistic training, right, around these principles so that we're working on ourselves and on the team while we're working in our organizations toward mission accomplishment. Again, this is one of the reasons that SEAL teams are so effective, is because every day we worked on ourselves, we worked on the team while we were also working on accomplishing our mission. And we were always growing and learning, and we just became these accelerated learning machines. Developing a shared vision and commitment is extraordinarily important, and becoming a model for accountability and growth. What I mean by that is you as a leader will model accountability by being accountable. You'll model growth by continuous growing, and then everyone will expect that of themselves because you're expecting it of yourself, and vice versa, and it becomes this very dynamic, self-accountable organization. That's an unbeatable team topic for future discussion, okay, and tons of training in the Unbeatable Mind program. Trust me, this training works. It works for top executives just as well as SEAL trainees. This is my friend Robin Brown, who's CEO of a really well-run hospital, one of the top-run hospitals in the country. He says, thanks to Unbeatable Mind Training, this has been my most productive year ever, personally and professionally. I achieved new PRs for many of my Olympic lifts. I'm medication-free for the first time in 20 years. I've enhanced my relationship with my wife and daughters. I'm currently involved in 2 major initiatives at the hospital that will enhance our ability to manage the health of our patients, improve care, lower our costs. And over this past year, my executive team has become more cohesive, resilient to disruption, and focused on achieving our one thing. Awesome. Thanks, Robin. Other cool testimonials. Mark's more than a Navy SEAL. He's got the ability to teach us all how to be one in everyday life. That's from my friend Joe DeSana, founder of the Spartan Race. And going into the 2012 Olympic Games, Mark provided unique advice that helped us become a more tightly coordinated team. That's from the London 2012 Olympic silver medalist women's team pursuit, Velodrome Racers. Amazing women. If you're serious about designing a life around your why, then we're going to help you incorporate the 5-part winning formula for peak performance and power into your life. Because you want to design your life so that it supports you and your why, so that you don't get bogged down with the daily minutia that holds you back from achieving your goals. And for that, you need a strategy and a plan. The best way that I know, besides attending Navy SEAL training, is to enact a daily and weekly routine of excellence training with expert guidance. A wise person once said, perfection consists not in doing extraordinary things, but in doing ordinary things extraordinarily well. That's why I'm excited to give you an opportunity to access the new Unbeatable Mind Platinum Coaching Program. Sounds great, but what is it, you ask? This new Unbeatable Mind Platinum Program is an on-demand, online, accelerated learning system that will transform you into the strongest and most powerful, most complete version of yourself possible. Each of the training modules delivered monthly are filled with powerful training that covers our 5 mountains of development. That's physical, mental, emotional, intuitional, and your Kokoro or heart center. Let's talk about what you would get as part of this new 12-month coaching program, including a rare opportunity that involves my own personal coaching time. First, the Unbeatable Mind Foundation Lessons. These are a series of powerful lessons introducing the Unbeatable Mind philosophy, the training, and the unique tools that you will use to design your life for 20x or 20 times potential and max performance. These lessons introduce the content and are then supported by a host of other learning methods, such as the Unbeatable Mind Accelerated Video Coaching. This is weekly video training that teaches you the long-term habits and the powerful tools to increase your productivity. Tools such as visualization, concentration, positivity, mental focusing, meditation training, breath training, and emotional development. Also, the Way of the SEAL leadership principles, and much more. These videos also include live recorded talks that I've given to world and business leaders around the country. Also included are the Unbeatable Mind workout plans, which is dedicated guidance to support you with your elite level nutrition and functional fitness training, all scalable to your level of fitness now. These will allow you to achieve your most important physical and health goals. And the Unbeatable Mind Knowledge Vault. Access to almost every question and answer ever asked by previous Unbeatable Mind members. So you too can learn from their experience and get even faster results. And an exclusive peer-to-peer team support. This cannot be understated in its importance. You'll never feel alone. In addition to the coaching, you'll always have a direct connection to fellow members of your Unbeatable Mind team via the private Facebook group. All right, so let me summarize what I presented so far. 12 months of those foundation lesson plans that I've written. 12 months of the accelerated video coaching presented by myself and other Unbeatable Mind coaches. 12 months worth of your workout and nutrition plans
for elite level fitness and health. 12 months of the elite physical training workout demos where we demonstrate the movements of the functional fitness and Kokoro yoga. And 12 months access to the Knowledge Vault, as well as 12 months of your peer-to-peer support with your other Unbeatable Mind teammates. All of that's already a $3,000 value, and it's only the beginning. So I have some bonuses for you. The first bonus is 12 months of group coaching calls with certified Unbeatable Mind coaches. These are monthly group coaching calls, which will help keep you accountable and ensure you have all the support and guidance you need. Considering that our coaches typically charge nearly $400 an hour, even if you only used a few of these calls, that's easily another $2,400 in value. The second bonus I think is particularly important, especially since you probably want to attend a live event at some point in the future. And that's a 10% discount on select Unbeatable Mind and our sister company, SealFit events. So if there's an event you want to attend or had your eyes on, you can use that discount and save up to $450 off that event price. And most important is bonus number 3, which is a monthly interactive webinar with me, which I alluded to earlier in this video. Now, I've hesitated to offer this lately because of my time commitments in travel, but my team finally convinced me to do it for this program. So each month I'll be doing a live webinar session where I'll overview some new content for a lesson, give you unique and unusual insights from my perspective as the Unbeatable Mind founder and SealFit founder, and then open up the call to questions where you can ask me anything about your training or your life for that matter. These calls will all be recorded for those who can't make it on a given date. Now that is the closest thing that I have to offer to my $20,000 Inner Circle Mastermind experience where folks train with me in person 4 or more times a year. So clearly, this alone is worth over $4,800 for the year. So let me summarize again. You'll receive 12 months of the foundation lesson plans of the cutting-edge Unbeatable Mind Integrated Development Plan. 12 months of accelerated video coaching to support your journey, including exercises and special training. 12 months of your workout and nutrition plans and the elite physical training workout demos. 12-month access to the Knowledge Vault and 12 months of peer-to-peer support with your Unbeatable Mind teammates. A monthly Q&A call with an Unbeatable Mind coach. That's your coaching call to help you stay accountable and to develop momentum and traction. And that monthly interactive webinar lesson with myself where we'll introduce new content and I'll answer any questions that you have. That's greater than $10,000 in value. And there's still some more here. Bonus number 4 is the video experience from our annual Unbeatable Mind Summit gathering. So you'll receive 2016 video recordings of our annual event, with many of the world's leading experts sharing their secrets with me, going over how to develop physically, mentally, emotionally, intuitionally, and spiritually. This is easily an $800 value. Along with these recordings, you will also receive the Retreat's 5 Mountain Planning Workbook so that you can work along and do the work yourself, the Unbeatable Mind Leather Journal to journal your insights, an Unbeatable Mind book signed by myself, and the thumb drive with the retreat video and audio. That's another $500 value. So all in all, for this program, you're receiving at greater than $10,000 in real value for one of the most powerful training systems ever developed, an integrated development system that has transformed thousands of lives since its launching in 2012. But if you're serious enough to jump in now and commit to training with myself and my team, you're not going to pay anything near that much. Available today because you were so generous with your time and wanted to learn from this webinar, you'll pay only $997 for the entire year or 3 easy payments of $347. Now that's a smoking deal. So if you're ready, choose the payment option that works for you so you can get started now. Don't delay. You'll save the most if you pay all at once. However, taking advantage of the payment plan does not affect any of your membership benefits or access. Trust me, if you fully commit to this journey, you will experience exponential growth over the next 12 months. You're going to unlock that 20 times potential. You will discover and live your why. You will become better, faster, and stronger and integrate and access flow on demand. And you will achieve more audacious goals, be more powerful, show up in the world with more presence. So the path, in my opinion, couldn't be more clear. Join my team and I now. Click here and get ready for the training and transformation experience of a lifetime. You won't regret it. Thanks for your time today. Armed with this transformational training, you're going to be well on your way to results you never imagined possible. Results that will lead you to a truly unbeatable life, the one that you deserve. So Jeff is going to read me some of your questions, and I will endeavor to answer them. And thanks again for your time. So stay with me, because these Q&A sessions often devolve into some great training. You never know what's going to come up.
So from Hannah.
Okay.
Hannah's asking, I'm hearing about SEAL Fit for the first time. Where should I start? Fitness regimen, where does one begin?
All right, Hannah. So Hannah asked, she's hearing about SEAL Fit for the first time. Where do I start? Well, that's interesting, because this webinar was really about, a coaching program, Unbeatable Mind Platinum program, and we happen to have a fitness program built into it. So it's a 12-month program, and every month you get a fitness and nutrition training plan, essentially. And it is really a crawl, walk, run. So Hannah, I don't recommend you start with SEAL Fit, because SEAL Fit is advanced training. It's like a PhD for elite athletes. And even though in that program we have a way to get you going, if you're hearing about it for the first time, it's probable that you'd want to start with what we have in Unbeatable Mind, which is a more progressive program for folks who aren't already elite athletes. Now, if you're an elite athlete, then go to sealfit.com or sealfit.com and check it out. But if you're not, and if you're intrigued with what you hear on this webinar, what you heard on this webinar, then remember, we've got a terrific yoga program built in. That alone can kickstart you. And then we've got every month you'll have a training plan with nutrition guidelines. And by the end of the 12 months, you will be functionally fit and much healthier, in addition to having that unbeatable mind. So, stick with what we have here.
Another question is, in your opinion, this is someone, Arturo, who's asking the question.
Arturo, okay.
What is the difference, in your opinion, between a leader, a coach, and a sheepdog?
Arturo, thanks for asking. A difference between a leader, a coach, and a sheepdog. Well, they're all different, but they could also be the same. So let's start with coach. A coach is someone who has a fiduciary responsibility, or one that they take on, or that's even appointed, or it's in their job description, I guess, to really guide and mentor a population to achieve results that they couldn't do on their own. So that's a coach. Now, coaches should also be leaders, but it's not necessary that they are excellent leaders, because coaches a lot of times are in development themselves. That's why a lot of coaches come to Unbeatable Mind for additional training, to learn new skills, to become better leaders. So a leader is someone who is committed to developing self-mastery so that they can serve a population of people, those committed to a common mission, better. And so that together the team can accomplish the mission with a high degree of success. So the leader's job really is to corral, to push, to support, to provide vision, to provide structure, and to do it in such a way that they have an authentic, trustworthy bond with their teammates. And so that's a leader. It's not a position. Now, we often in our society equate leadership with a position, but that's just a structural role. We learn all about this in lesson 4 of Unbeatable Mind, where we talk about the 4-quadrant model of life, where we live in these 4 quadrants of I, we, it, and it simultaneously. And so leaders need to understand that model. Now, sheepdog, okay? Sheepdogs. Here's my thinking about sheepdogs. Every one of you watching this, every single person who has the capacity to be a leader, and if you're a parent, this is you as well, needs to step up to be a sheepdog. If you think that the government can protect you from the wolves of society, all you need to do is ask those people who were in the nightclub in Orlando, or even the policemen who were murdered in Paris or France, and it's happening all over. And radical Islam is a seductive ideology, and people are joining it, and their mission is to do grievous harm to us, Americans and Westerners, on our soil. It's going to get worse. So are we going to sit around and do nothing about it? Well, trust me, I'm not, and you're not, and people who train with SEAL Fit and Unbeatable Mind are not. So you got to learn the skills to be able to step up and take control so that you can be part of the solution and not a victim. And so the sheepdog strong qualities of awareness, right? Deepening your senses of intuition and instinct, and learning how to take control of your body, mind, and emotions when a crisis situation starts, so you do not freeze, but you can fight or get your people out of harm's way. In addition, to be able to sense and detect threats well before they arise, like the neighbors of that Orlando, or the people in this community should have been able to detect what was going on. And so often we hear after the fact that there were all these tells that that indicated that something was going on. Now, yes, we need to take a look at how these people acquire weapons and remove those avenues, but they'll still get their hands on weapons. It's not the weapons that are the issue, it's the people. At any rate, I don't want to go off too long on this. Being sheepdog strong is part of the Unbeatable Mind training. It requires the full 12 months. It's not something you're going to get in the in the first 30 days. But when you commit to it, and you commit to self-mastery and service, this is an important part, developing leadership grit and a sheepdog strong attitude.
An unusual question here from KS, who just says he just ordered, so good for KS.
KS, awesome, well done.
Is it possible to have two wives?
Is it possible to have two wives? Well, if you have two wives, then it's possible, okay? But what my thinking is, and I do a lot of work in our inner circle coaching clients when I have a lot of time to work with them one-on-one, that there really is often a meta, M-E-T-A-Y, a meta purpose in life that has several ways that you might activate it, right? And so a lot of people say, because we're taught to really kind of segment our lives, and Unbeatable Mind is about integrating. And so if you're still in this mode where I look at my life in a segmented manner, like I've got my home life, and in my home life, I lead my family and my kids and whatnot, and I take care of them. Then I have my spiritual life, and I have my work life, and I have my kind of financial life. Well, with Unbeatable Mind, we integrate that all, and we say, okay, self-mastery in service. So self-mastery for me in the I sphere means that I am sheepdog strong, I'm confident, and I've got the attributes of authenticity and sincerity, and I'm connecting with my essential nature as opposed to my egoic self. And what that means is, in the we structures of my family, I'm a better father, right? I'm more authentic in my relationships. I am more present with my children. And guess what? When I step into the work with my work teams, same thing goes. I'm more authentic. I'm more service-oriented. I'm more supportive. I'm a better listener. I'm able to have difficult conversations. And so these things unfold in these different, domains. So we don't have to have a why of, hey, my why is to be the most important father. I hear that a lot. Or I'm not the most important, but the strongest father or parent I could be. And then someone else will say, well, my why is to serve God, my faith. And to me, those are all part of the same why. I hope that makes sense. So you've got to think about, what is your meta why? Mine is to master myself so I can serve you. Notice how that's aligned with Unbeatable's purpose of developing mastery in you so that you can serve your constituents better. I hope I answered your question.
This next question is from Steve.
Steve.
What do you do after a big setback?
Oh man, big setbacks are awesome because they're like slingshots for me. It doesn't mean that they don't come without their dose of pain and humility. Of course they do. But part of my training as a Navy SEAL was to expect them. to expect challenge, to expect the obstacles to be there, to develop the skills to overcome them very quickly, and then to learn the lesson as fast as possible, and then to slingshot out of it with new insights, new awareness, and new skills to drive toward the objective with the best information we have now after that obstacle. So what happens is we develop a plan that's good enough, and then we get out the door. Doubt is eliminated through action. And when we take action, the next obstacle arises. There is no perfect straight line between now and mission success. It's just this windy road, and your job is to find your way or make your way around the obstacles, removing them one at a time. Bigger the obstacles present bigger opportunities to learn and grow. And the really, really painful ones, the ones that really suck, then we get through it the best we can. We grieve, let's say, if it includes the loss of a loved one or something like that. That's really hard. I'm not trying to make light of it, but I'm trying to say is we develop the skills through Unbeatable Mind so that we can reframe it. We can understand the goodness in it, because there's good and bad in every situation. We extract the goodness. We learn to process the bad and the regrets, and so we don't carry them forward. And then we spring forward with a new understanding and a lightness in our step to dominate the mission. So I look at all obstacles as opportunity for growth, insight, and acceleration. Great question, by the way.
This one it's kind of similar in some ways. It's from Simone or Simon. What strategy can you take to prevent yourself from making the same mistakes?
Okay, what strategy can we take to prevent from making the same mistakes? This is also an excellent question. So we have a concept in Unbeatable Mind, in particular amongst the emotional mountain content. So in the Unbeatable Mind lessons, right, after a few introductory lessons where we really begin to teach you the principles of mental toughness and resiliency and the witness process and the big four skills, and there's a lot of work in that in the first 3 lessons, and how to overcome stress and fear, develop confidence, then we get into the 5 mountains. And there's like intense amount of training and content around physical, mental, emotional, intuitional, and spiritual or Kokoro spirit development. Well, in the emotional mountain, well, it starts with the mental, but then it's most of the work is in the emotional mountain. We talk about your background of obviousness, BOO, which are those rutted patterns that are driven by belief systems that were planted at an early age. And that is imperative for us as Unbeatable Mind trainees to uncover and declutter our mental and emotional environment so that we can pinpoint those patterns and then work to override them with much more effective, much more positive patterns that don't lead to us sabotaging our own success. Okay, so we create the world that we live in through our reactions and our responses and our decisions. And so what we're trying to do with Unbeatable Mind in the emotional and the intuitive mountains is to get very, very clear about what is causing us to act certain ways, and to override the negative and the weak responses, the common responses, and to replace them with uncommon and exceptional responses that lead us in entirely new directions. I hope that answered your question, Simon.
We've had a couple different people ask this question. Joining Unbeatable Mind, what kind of time commitment would you tell them to have each day?
Okay, so I love this. The question is, and was asked by several of you, is what kind of time commitment should you expect daily? Okay, so in the first month of the program, or when you first get in, I have some guidelines on how to get started your first week, and then first day, first week, and first month. And so the content consumption would probably be the most timely, okay, the most time consuming, because you're going to want to read the lesson documents and listen to the videos to get the information really downloaded. Okay, but so that would be maybe the first couple days of the month. The lesson plan is delivered, consume the content, and really just sit with it for a little bit. But the real meat and potatoes of this program is the daily training and practice. And it's not as time consuming as it seems, because I introduce a lot of things, but these things we put into places in our schedule, in our lives, where we're doing other things that don't support our self-mastery and service, that don't really lead to uncommon, exceptional results. So we replace common habits with uncommon habits. Two of those time periods are right when you wake up in the morning and right before you go to bed at night. We call that the morning and the evening rituals. So anywhere from 5 to 15 minutes you can expect in those two time blocks. The other is your workout. Now, most of you have a workout. My philosophy is that training and working out are two different things. If you're working out, good for you. It's not bad. It's better than nothing. But we want to get on a very deliberate training plan that's leading us somewhere powerful. And in that training plan, we're going to improve the way we train our physical body with functional fitness. If you're already doing that through SEAL Fit or CrossFit, good on you. Now, and if you're not, then we'll teach you how. But we also want to train ourselves mentally, emotionally, intuitionally, and spiritually. There's the other four mountains. And we give you tools and techniques to build that into your workout plan. In particular, through team training. We want you to get a swim buddy or team to train with. There's a lot of emotional and leadership benefits that come from that and teaming. But also, by using the big four skills, which we introduced right in the beginning of Unbeatable Mind, lesson 1 and lesson 2, we use those big four skills. We develop them through our workout moment, our training, our daily training. And then I'll say the last part about this is a lot of the drills for concentration, visualization, breath control, mindfulness, et cetera, are done in quick little spot drills. In fact, the Kokoro Yoga 30-day challenge has 30 spot drills, all of them about 6 minutes long, a couple longer ones that you can do you can do one at lunchtime. You can do, you have a couple breaks during the day. You just get up and go to a quiet place and do a spot drill. And so you keep your training going throughout the day with the rituals, your actual workout time, training time, and the spot drills. And ultimately, the last thing I'll say on this, because this is such an important topic, is this training, because of the great clarity that it brings you, allows you to make better decisions, to say no to things you shouldn't be doing, to say yes to the right things. And all of a sudden, all this time begins to open up for you because you're doing less better and you're focusing on the right things that are connected to your why, and all those other things that are cluttering up your day and your mind and your schedule, they go away. And you're like a laser beam, just kicking butt and taking names.
All right, this is kind of on a different topic, but it's kind of interesting. What was the hardest thing about BUD/S for you?
Hardest thing, okay, so the question was, what was the hardest thing about BUD/S for me? BUD/S is Basic Underwater Demolition SEAL Training. Admittedly, I went through it a couple of years ago. To me, BUD/S, the relentlessness of it day in and day out for, now it's 9 months because they included the SEAL qualification training into the BUD/S program. For me, it was 6 months, and then at my team, another 4 months. It's just relentless. It is nonstop, day in and day out, relentless, 12, 15, 18, sometimes 24 hours a day of just intensity, intense physical training, intense mental and emotional training. And so, it really required skills like I'm teaching in Unbeatable Mind to maintain your mental focus, resiliency, and to be able to show up every day with a smile on your face and to get it done, right? You didn't have to win everything, but you certainly couldn't lose anything. And every day you needed to learn how to just get up and put out. And it reminds me of my mentors, one of my mentors' sayings when he said, one day, one lifetime, that was it, right? Every day I treated it as if that was the only thing that mattered to me. Tomorrow is a fantasy and yesterday is gone. And that's why we have this saying, the only easy day was yesterday because it's already in the bag. What you got to do is put out right now, today. So that's a challenge. To me, that was the hardest thing. But once I mastered these skills, then it became really enjoyable, especially as I saw everyone else falling off. And I didn't enjoy seeing them fall off and quit necessarily, but I realized how much power I had. And I trained my boat crew in a lot of these skills, and we all made it through BUD/S. We had 185 start, 19 of us graduated, and 7 of them were my boat crew. So what we're doing here and what we're teaching in Unbeatable Mind works. If it works for Navy SEAL trainees, can you imagine what it would do for you as a business professional, an entrepreneur, a mother, or a father?
Was this last question?
Sure, last question.
All right, so Dan asks, what do you do by finding your why in other aspects of your personality, you discover part of your personality you were not proud of.
Join the club.
How do you change that?
How do you change it? So Dan asks, what do you do if you're part of your training and deepening awareness? So I'm going to add that you find an aspect of yourself you're not proud of. And I'm serious. Join the club, right? That is utterly common, and to include myself, yours truly. So we tend to live in denial when we're connected to our ego. I mentioned in the presentation about waking up, growing up, cleaning up, and showing up. Okay, so all that happens throughout this Unbeatable Mind program. You will wake up to your true nature, which means once you learn the witness process we introduce in lesson 1 and 2, you begin to connect with your deeper, more essential nature, and you realize that all those egoic structures of the ego identity, the way that we're taught to live, to be completely merged with our thinking, that thinking leads to really distorted patterns over time. If you're honest with yourself and you can look at it. And so when I look back at my life, when I was in that phase of my life where I was merging, with my thoughts, or mostly merged, and then I look at the patterns, the little bombs I would drop here and there, it's like, wow, I'm not real proud of that. I'm not proud of the way I was when I was in my teens and early 20s and the way I treated people. But that doesn't mean I'm a bad person, right? Because my essential nature is still pure, and it wasn't my essential nature that was making those calls. It was my ego. It was my ego. And so the training in Unbeatable Mind connects us with our essential nature, with our witnessing, our higher self. And now we can start to tame and get that brain, that ego mind, the cognitive mind to work for us instead of us being a slave to it. Now, that sounds a little metaphysical, but it's super practical and has enormous benefits no matter what you're doing in your life, whether you want to be a Navy SEAL or whether you're a Fortune 1000 CEO. It's extraordinarily valuable to be able to connect with your heart mind. That's the meaning of Kokoro, heart and mind in action. And when your heart and mind are in action, then you're acting out of your essential nature, and your cognitive mind is a servant to that. And that's why we use mental models for decision making. We check our decisions against our belly and against our heart and against our insights, right? And we have a team to hold us accountable. We're not afraid to take critical feedback. In fact, we embrace it because that's how we grow and learn. And we're not afraid to give it because we know that's how our team is going to grow and learn, and we're going to accomplish mission together. There's a lot there that I just said. All of it's trained in this program. I super encourage you to join me and my team. I'm going to spend a ton of time through these webinars every month working with you on topics and questions just like this so that you can really embed and own this information and develop leadership grit, become sheepdog strong, understand and uncover your why and live from your why, and essentially take massive action so that by the end of this program, your momentum is unstoppable.
So let me summarize again. You'll receive 12 months of the foundation lesson plans of the cutting-edge Unbeatable Mind Integrated Development Plan. 12 months of accelerated video coaching to support your journey, including exercises and special training. 12 months of your workout and nutrition plans and the elite physical training workout demos. 12-month access to the Knowledge Vault, and 12 months of peer-to-peer support with your Unbeatable Mind teammates. A monthly Q&A call with an Unbeatable Mind coach. That's your coaching call to help you stay accountable and to develop momentum and traction. And that monthly interactive webinar lesson with myself, where we'll introduce new content and I'll answer any questions that you have. That's greater than $10,000 in value. And there's still some more here. Bonus number 4 is the video experience from our annual Unbeatable Mind Summit gathering. So you'll receive 2016 video recordings of our annual event, with many of the world's leading experts sharing their secrets with me, going over how to develop physically, mentally, emotionally, intuitionally, and spiritually. This is easily an $800 value. Along with these recordings, you will also receive the retreat's 5 mountain planning workbook so that you can work along and do the work yourself, the Unbeatable Mind leather journal to journal your insights, an Unbeatable Mind book signed by myself, and the thumb drive with the retreat video, and audio. That's another $500 value. So all in all, for this program, you're receiving at greater than $10,000 in real value for one of the most powerful training systems ever developed, an integrated development system that has transformed thousands of lives since its launching in 2012. I can't wait to train with you. So see you there. Hoo-yah.